One thing I recently set up for the boat is a simple solar mat. It's a really cheap King system. It was really easy to set up, and I'll show you exactly how I did it. One of the big issues that I've tried to rectify with this boat is that I run two sounders and a separate battery for the two sounders. So I've still got my crank battery that runs starts my engine, runs my lights and things like that. And that crank battery is connected to the engine, so the engine's going to recharge the crank battery. But I chose not to connect the sounder battery to the crank battery because I'm going to run two sounders pretty hard, two 9-inch helix sounders. And if I'm away for a weekend fishing, then I don't want to run the crank battery flat because I've been using the sounders. So I've had to come up with another system. So look, I thought about putting another charging system in the boat running off the engine. So a cheap solution for me was to get this mat. Now it's a 200 watt King solar mat, and I've got a 100 amp hour battery. So I did read that if you've got a 100 amp hour battery, you should go for a 200 watt solar blanket. You've got a 120 amp hour battery, you might have to go to a 250. So I grabbed this, and look, I've played around with it, I've tested it, I've run a couple of Anderson plugs. So I've got an Anderson plug going to my electric motor, and that's got a 100 amp hour lithium battery, and another Anderson plug going to the sounders, which I'm more concerned about because that's got another 100 amp hour but an AGM battery, not a lithium battery. So to make the solar mats work, you need a regulator. If you plug your solar mat straight up into the battery, well, it'll charge your battery up nice and quick, but it'll keep charging and end up cooking your battery. So you need a regulator, and there's two different types. Now, the type that I use and the type that I prefer is the MPPT system, and that's this one just here. You can see there's a couple of Anderson plugs sticking off the bottom, hanging off the bottom of it. And the MPPT system, that stands for maximum power point tracking. And maximum power point tracking, just without all the jargon and all the bullshit that goes with it, it just basically takes the maximum amount of power your solar mat's generating and can pump that into your battery. So it's a really good system, because when your solar mat's out in full sun, it can generate a lot of power, like 20 amps of power, no problem at all, and pump a fair bit of charge into the battery. But these ones here, this is a PWM, it's a pulse width modulator, I think the PWM stands for. Now, basically what that is pulse width modulating. It pulsates a charge into the battery, modulated compared to the amount of charge that the battery's got and how full it's getting, you know, blah blah blah. I don't even fully understand it myself, but that's how it works. Difference with this is it can't really generate too much more power than what the amperage of the battery is already. So it can't generate all the power out of the solar mat and pump that into the battery like the MPPT system can. So that's a really good system. These are still good, they're cheap, there's a lot less moving parts in these, so they're a bit more rigid, if you like. They cost you about 50 bucks compared to 100 bucks. There's not much difference between the two really. So pick whichever one you want. That does have two USB ports on it, so charging phones, camera gear and stuff like that's really good. I carry that as a spare because I bought it thinking I needed it, where I already had one of these, and turns out I didn't. But anyway, I got a spare, so that's great. The only other thing I got is, and it came with the mat, so I bought the solar mat, this cable and the MPPT system all in a package for about 250 bucks. With the other charger, it cost me about 300 bucks all up to have a spare as well. So the cable's long enough, I can plug one end into the mat, that plugs into the mat, this plugs into one end of there, and that goes into an Anderson plug I've got on my battery just over here, as you can see here now. So look, really simple system, and hopefully it'll work a charm. PWM unit's a bit cheaper than the MPPT, but you know, you get a cable with it, you get the Anderson plugs on the cable, so you just got to rig up some Anderson plugs like I have done here with my rear battery. My electric motor's got an Anderson plug on it already, and I'm all set to go. So the fact that it sits so well on the deck of my boat means that when I'm running from fishing spot to fishing spot, I can throw it out. When I'm anchored up in the afternoon, or I just leave it on all night, morning sun will charge it up, but afternoon sun will charge it up. Look, I'm not expecting it to have the battery fully charged all the time, but it's just going to trickle that little bit of charge in so that when I'm away, I can, you know, not stress about, you know, running 2 sounders, you know, when I want to, because often I'm going on a trip to Torres Straits in a few weeks. Sam will be fishing out the back of the boat a lot of the time, or both of us will be on the front of the boat. So I'll run both sounders, because I can't run the front sounder without having the back sounder on, because they're linked up together. So one transducer running both sounders, so the front sounder's linked to the sounder on the console. So even if we are both up the front of the boat, you know, we're looking at the one sounder, we still need to run 2 sounders. So look, it'll be a great test for it to see how it goes, see if it keeps them trickled up, and save me having to carry a generator and run a generator during the night to keep the batteries charged. So I'll let you know how it goes.